We're here today because we have filed charges against this Letitia James. We will hold you accountable. You're next. Get ready. It's over. It ends, and we're coming after you.
I'd like to address an issue that's been in the news over and over again. Until now, I've chosen to take the high road. I've chosen not to respond in detail. But that changes today. Since that report came out, no one is above the law, including myself.
I would say to Big Tish, when I warned her several months ago that we're going to put her fat ass in prison, I think that's actually going to come true.
Letitia James, everybody knows her, is being reminded what it means to F-A-F-O. Everybody knows what that means, right? The Department of Justice is in the early stages of investigating the office of New York's Attorney General Letitia James, serving her office with 2 subpoenas. One was not enough. As part of a broader probe, Washington loves probes, don't they? That is looking into whether the AG's office violated the rights of President Trump and other people as well, as you might expect. One of the subpoenas is related to the sham civil fraud case that Tish James brought against President Trump that led to the circus trial in New York. Remember, a Democrat self-immolated outside the courthouse and killed himself there. They set themselves on fire sometimes. Where the smiling clown judge, remember this guy, Arthur Engoron, he ordered the president to pay $454 million to Letitia James' office, a judgment that the president is appealing, as you might expect. In that case, Tish, the Attorney General in New York, accused President Trump of fraudulent misrepresentations of his wealth and financial statements. Remember, they said his $500 million estate in Palm Beach was worth $19 million and all that good stuff. It was nuts, which is, it's quite ironic, considering the fact that Tish James herself was referred to the Department of Justice earlier this year with allegations of, you'll never guess, falsifying records to get favorable loans for herself, real estate loans no less. Those accusations that were brought by the Federal Housing Finance Agency Director, William Pulte, assert that Tish James claimed a Virginia property as her principal residence while she served very publicly as New York's Attorney General and lived in New York. So that seems unlikely. That's a long drive to commute every day. And that in that case, they allege that she misrepresented the number of units that she owned in a Brooklyn building, rental stuff, slumlord stuff, that she bought in 2001. According to one report, the Department of Justice is going after Tish James because she took President Trump to court because she didn't like him and campaigned on getting him. Remember that?
I was the first to report last year on how Adam Schiff's Senate predecessor, LaFonza Butler, she actually had her primary residence in Maryland. She was registered to vote in Maryland, which is a far better state than California, when she was appointed to the United States Senate. And this whole thing goes back to what we were talking about earlier this week.
I want to first tackle the allegations about the civil fraud case, President Trump, which resulted in a $500 million penalty against him and is currently being appealed. This was Judge Arthur Engoron who got the case when Letitia James brought it. When you talk about the serious nature of going after President Trump, when there is a crime during the case that we covered moment by moment and is, as I said, being appealed, that there were no victims, a 5-judge appellate court in New York was questioning Deputy New York Solicitor General Judith Vale about the lack of victims and the huge penalty. So it kind of makes sense that now Pam Bondi is going to look into what weaponization was really going on here with Attorney General Letitia James to bring this case.
A lot of us have been very critical, Bianca, against that litigation for the reason that you articulate. A, there was no victim. B, the bank that supposedly was defrauded said they weren't defrauded. They would do business with the Trump organization again. But this effort to investigate the origins of the case, I cannot underscore the seriousness of it. This is a criminal investigation. So the Justice Department is contemplating prosecuting the Attorney General of New York, this would be unprecedented, for engaging in criminal acts by wrongfully charging him or holding back exculpatory evidence and wrongfully bringing the case against him. That's a high bar for the DOJ to meet, but if they can meet it, it'll be absolutely unprecedented.
I know she is calling it weaponization in her spokesperson's statement that just dropped, Judge. But when we say unprecedented, what they were doing when President Trump was running for office was unprecedented as well. So
Yes.
we have seen this action before. But if they do have the goods and she is indicted, as you say, there would be... It's an earthquake, obviously, of what happens next, and it could lead to so many other layers of this. I also want to bring in the NRA angle of it, because the DOJ is saying National Rifle Association unfairly prosecuted. We just heard James Rosen saying they're violating their First and Second Amendment rights. That is something that Letitia James will also have to answer to, and a grand jury is looking at right now.
Well, that was not a prosecution. That was a civil lawsuit, just like the case against the Trump Organization was a civil lawsuit. But again, this is a separate criminal investigation as to whether there was criminal intent in the mind of Letitia James when she went after the NRA. Did she truly go after them because they violated New York state law, or did she go after them because she hates their free speech and she hates their defense of the Second Amendment? This is another case that a lot of us attacked at the time, but I did not think, honestly, that it would morph into a criminal prosecution of the Attorney General. Just like with the other case, it would be unprecedented if this happens.
So let me ask you, we all remember the very famous video clip of Letitia James when she was campaigning, and she was, I'm going to get Trump, and it was part of her campaign ads. It's everywhere. That lives online forever. Can that be now used as evidence here, saying she campaigned to get Trump? She had an intent. There was a motive here. She was actually actively engaged in trying to take away rights he had, and there was malice here. I mean, I would think that's a pretty damaging clip, and that's going to be resurrected, Judge.
You know, it's a great question, and it's very strange that a person's campaign behavior could be used against them once they're in office. But yes, that would be a valid piece of evidence, and I'm sure it's been played for the grand jury. But remember, the prosecutors have to show that she did something intentionally wrong, and she knew it was wrong at the time. This is why attorneys general and judges are rarely prosecuted, because they're protected by the law. But if they can show that she knew she was going after him just for political reasons, then they have a case against her.
It was a very productive week. I've gone over to the DOJ and the White House several times during my vice reign here in D.C. And I would say this: there are a lot of people who are concerned about what Pam Bondi is doing or not doing at the DOJ. I think the Epstein stuff got her tripped up. I would just say to your audience, justice is coming. I promise you, justice is coming. I went and met with the Attorney General Pam Bondi one-on-one. I met with her team in the Attorney General's office. I met with Todd Blanche. I met with Emil Bove. Todd Blanche is the Deputy Attorney General. I met with Emil Bove, who is his number two, the number two to the number two, the most powerful unknown position in the government. I met with Chad Mizell, the acting number three, and Pam's chief of staff. I met with Stanley Woodward. I met with Gail Slater. Harmeet Dillon's over there. Kash Patel's over there. Dan Bongino's over there. They're starting to fire on all cylinders. I promise you this. This is normal during a startup phase as you're getting people confirmed and staffed up. You're not going to have immediate results, but they've gotten a lot accomplished already publicly, for example, just firing a lot of the deep state, getting rid of these bad actors, chasing them out of the Southern District of New York, chasing them out of Main Justice. They've closed a lot of these cases. They're opening cases. They're working on this. And I promise you that justice is coming. They're working with the FBI. They're working with these other law enforcement agencies. They're working with these agency heads. They're working with the DOJ leadership. Justice is definitely coming. I know it's coming. But remember, I think I told Big Tish that her fat ass may be going to prison. And wow, who knew that we would have been Nostradamus that day? Because now there is pretty compelling evidence that Big Tish, oh, there you go, I dare you. There was pretty compelling evidence that Big Tish James lied on a Virginia mortgage application. She said it was her primary residence, even though she's the New York Attorney General, so she can get a more favorable loan agreements in Virginia. And lo and behold, she was probably lying. And lo and behold, that's mortgage fraud. And lo and behold, there are prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia who will probably indict Tish James. I mean, it's pretty compelling evidence. And she's the one, remember, who brought the bogus fraud charge against, civil fraud charge against President Trump for supposedly duping Wall Street banks, sophisticated Wall Street banks, paying them on time as agreed in full with interest. And Tish James said that Trump lied about the value of Mar-a-Lago. She said that Trump said Mar-a-Lago was worth, like $500 million, and it's worth double that. But Tish James said, well, no, it's only worth $18 million because that's what the tax assessor says it's worth. If you just go on Zillow, go on Redfin, and look at what property cost in Palm Beach, Florida, the most expensive real estate in the world. Trump has 20 acres of the most prime real estate in the world. It's, I think, the only property that touches both the Atlantic Ocean and the intracoastal waterway. It's clearly worth at least $500 million, if not $1 billion or more. And to say that it's only worth $18 million, a tennis court at Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. And Big Tish took Trump to trial in New York on this and got Arthur Ingeron, that nut job trial attorney, to railroad President Trump, where it was a kangaroo court. There was no due process. Now Democrats want due process for Tren de Aragua terrorists and MS-13 gangbangers who beat women and traffic women and rape kids. But suddenly they care about due process, but they didn't care about due process for President Trump. So I would say to Big Tish, when I warned her several months ago that we're going to put her fat ass in prison, I think that's actually going to come true.
So you believe that the DOJ is going to pick up these charges, and they're going to potentially put Big Tish on a prison diet. You began this by talking about prison diets, and you could potentially get that here. Maybe it would be a good thing. We're not sure, but you're saying that it could happen.
We'll either have to put her on a prison diet, or we're going to have to increase the Federal Bureau of Prisons food budget. So one of the two. But I would say to Big Tish, if you lied on your mortgage application, that's mortgage fraud. You're very familiar with the fraud statutes because you brought your bogus fraud case against Trump to try to derail his presidential campaign and bankrupt him. They have Big Tish dead to rights on this. And so nobody's above the law. And
Right.
If they don't indict Big Tish for this, they're giving her amnesty. So I don't think the Trump administration is going to give her amnesty. So I think they're going to indict her.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.